I'm not going to lie, I feel so little, Rick.
I feel so little.
And that's saying something.
Yes, I see. So, how you doing? You look
I'm doing
good,
awesome.
man.
Wow, you got an incredible
Yeah,
crowd.
This is your first book that you've written in 20 years.
Yes.
So why now, and what was the impulse to write it?
Well, for, 37 years of my life, I've been obsessed with figuring out how do you help people improve things quickly? How do you create breakthroughs? And if you look at your life, there's only a few areas that really matter to the quality of your life. Your relationships, your emotions, your body, and really money. And when I grew up in a very tough environment financially, and we had no money for food at times. So when 2008 came along, and I saw so many people losing half their retirement or losing their homes, it wasn't a statistic to me, and I wanted to help. And everybody said the government was going to do something, and 2 years later, nothing had happened. So I said, you know what, I'm going to participate in the solution. And I have a unique opportunity most people don't know. I've been coaching for 21 years one of the top 10 financial traders in the history of the world. His name's Paul Tudor Jones, and he hasn't lost money in all 21 years. Unheard of.
Amazing, yeah.
So I said, what if I interviewed him and 50 of the smartest people in the world, self-made billionaires that started with nothing, Nobel laureates, and I could simplify this so that a baby boomer that's trying to figure out how to retire still could, so that a kid coming out of college who's got all the student debt could really get free. And I went on a 4-year journey, and this book is the result, and I've simplified it into 7 steps anybody can do.
Now, in your journey to interviewing all the biggest players in the world of money, what's the most common trait you found between them?
Well, there's a couple of them. One is they're obsessed with not losing, which most of us are trying to make money. Because they realize if you lose 50%, you got to make 100% to get even.
Right.
And that can take you years to be able to do. But the other thing is something called asymmetrical risk reward. Big mouthful. It just means they aren't big risk takers. They try to use the least amount of risk with the greatest reward. One of the guys that I worked with is a man named Kyle Bass. He turned $30 million into $2 billion. Sounds insane. The way he did it was he risked 6 cents to make $1. So he could be wrong 15 times and still make money.
Wow.
When you do that, you're not wrong 15 times. So I've learned how to show the average person how to do things that the wealthiest people in the world do. It's really about leveling the playing field, taking what Wall Street knows and bringing it to Main Street.
You say that millions of people are making avoidable mistakes. What are the major money mistakes that people make?
The most basic one is that we think we have to have a lot of money to make money. So we're trying to have this big windfall, and we don't get started. But what you really need is a small amount of money that you keep doing automatically. You don't think about it. It's just taken from your paycheck. You don't look at it. And I'll give you an example. There's a man named Theodore Johnson, worked for UPS, a guy that used to drive the truck. He never made more than $14,000 in his life, and when he retired, he had $70 million. All he did was take 20%, which sounds huge, but if there was a tax, you'd pay it.
Right.
And say, I'm never going to see that money. It's cut right out of my paycheck. It goes straight into these investments, and I show people what investments to make. $70 million. So most people just don't realize what a difference you can make with a small amount of money instead of trying to get some big windfall, which people who did. Kim Basinger was one of the greatest actresses, highest paid in her day, $10 million a picture, bankrupt. Mike Tyson, one of the greatest boxers in history, made $500 million, bankrupt. So it's not making a bunch, it's what to do with it.
And now what's another common issue that people...
I think the biggest thing is listening to the financial entertainers on television that scream at you, buy this, or take your Starbucks money and do that. They're really nice people, they're sincere, but they're not usually right. That's the problem. And so what I really tell people is, you have to understand who you're talking to. If they're a salesman, if they are a broker, then they're going to sell you what they're there to sell. It's not necessarily in your best interest. They might really care about you, but they got to sell what they have. The best metaphor I can give you is if you go to a butcher, he's going to sell you meat. That's what he's trained to do. He's not a bad guy. But if you went to a nutritionist, they're going to say, hey, dude, a little heavy red meat here. Let's do some fish. Let's do some... I'm here to support you. I'm not here to sell you meat. And so I want to teach you a new F word today, fiduciary.
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 One of my favorite words, by the way.
And it will be if you understand it, because a fiduciary is a person who you only pay a fee or a small percentage of what you invest, very tiny, less than 1%. But they strip out all the commissions, and they have to meet your needs, and they're required by law. If they told you to buy Apple this morning, and they bought it later in the day, and they got it cheaper, they have to give you the stock that they bought. So a fiduciary, I show people in the book how to get a fiduciary. It's very important.
Wow, that is great advice. And by the way, you made so much sense when you broke it down in terms of food.
Yeah.
I was like, that's genius. So by God.
And you also you think that fees don't. A lot of people think that fees don't matter. This is something I learned.
Yes.
There's a lot of fees associated with a lot of things you invest in.
Well, and most people don't think as investors. We got families, right, working on our tail off at our work, and we come home, it's supposed to be an investor. So we don't know how to read the fine print. I've eliminated that for people. Here's what I can tell you at the basic. If you invest like at your work in a 401k and a mutual fund, people think they're paying 1% in fees if they know anything.
Right.
Well, the average mutual fund is really 3.17. Well, what's the big deal? Well, just like money multiplies, so do fees. So if you had $100,000 and there were 3 people and they all started at 35, went to 65, 30 years of investing, 7% a year, the person who paid 1% in fees will have $574,000 accumulated from that money. The person who had 3% in fees would have literally $347,000. So there's $250,000 difference, 77% less money, same investments, just different fees. So it could be the difference between being a greeter at Walmart in later life or being financially stable and free.
What's the solution to that? How do you...
I show people how to rip out those fees by using a fiduciary, or it's one of the only things on earth where if you bought a Honda Accord, they're about $20,000 for a new one. If you found out you paid $400,000 for a Honda Accord and somebody else got it for 20 grand, you'd be upset.
Right.
Well, you get the same stocks and pay 2,000% more than if you invest in like what we call an index, where you're paying almost nothing. So the difference between literally overpaying for the exact same product, it's the only industry where this is possible because people have made it so complex. I cut through that and show you exactly what to do.
And on another note, I am mesmerized by the size of your hand. Never in my life.
There we go. You've got good size hands.
Oh, it's not as big as yours, man. Holy smokes.
I'm just like, as you were talking, I was like...
Should have been a box.
I know, oh my God, you
Well, let me tell you what, Tony.
going.
These are incredible tips. And I bought your the tape series, too.
Oh,
I
you
listed
did?
that in my car. Yes, I did.
Oh, that's awesome.
Everybody, please, go out, get this book, Tony Robbins, Money, Master the Game. It's available Tuesday. And for more information on Tony, visit our website, livekellyandmichael.com. Tony Robbins, everybody.